I know you like that. Hey, I know you like that. Hey, I know you like that. Hey, I know you like that. Whoa, taking exotic trips. Yeah, I know you like that. Whoa, switching up all the way.
Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to the Tia Beauty YouTube channel. Guys, if this is your first time on my channel, hit that subscribe button below. In this video, guys, you are going to find out some tips on how to move out of your parents' house as a millennial, or just in general, how to move out of your parents' house. So if you guys want to learn how you can move out of your parents' house, stay tuned. All right, guys, so let's finally move out. Moving out is such a big journey and such a huge step for a young person. It's like, oh my God, finally freedom, but oh my God, so much responsibility. It's scary, it's frightening, it's sad, it's happy, it's all those feelings in one. So I moved out of my parents' house finally about 7 months ago. So it's crazy, but it's literally been almost a year me being out of my parents' house. To start, before we can even decide that we're moving out, well, you need to actually make the decision that you want to move out. So you need to figure out how much it is that you make. What is your income? Start from how much you make a year, then break it down into how much I make a month, right? And then once you break down your income into how much you make a month, then you need to, on a separate tab, maybe have a little notepad with you, write down how much is it am I spending? How much am I spending? Write down every last one of your bills. Write down that I pay $7.99 plus tax for Netflix. I pay for Hulu. I pay $100 to fill up my car a month in gas. I pay this much on my student loan payments. I pay this, I pay that. You need to write everything down and add it all up. So now once you do that, you have your expenses and you have your income. So now you want to take your income, right? And you want to subtract your income from your expenses and see what you're left over with. Now, that number that you're left over with is going to give you a ballpark range of what you can afford to move out with. It can either be, oh my God, I can afford my own place, or it might be really stressful, like, I'm gonna be broke. And this is being super honest. Like, you have to be honest with yourself, guys. But not saying that on both of those numbers that you still cannot move out with. So you do want to make sure that you do have money in your savings. I would say a good number to move out with is at least $10,000. But that, even in this day and age, is hard for a lot of people to save. I have saved that amount a few times, but that's just because of how I am. Not everybody can do that, and I understand everyone doesn't make what I make, etc., etc. But if you cannot move out with $10,000 in your savings, just to cover, God forbid, rainy days, and you know, things happen, things come up, God forbid you lose a job, whatever, you can afford to make your, you know, rent until you can get your income back coming in. But if you can't afford that, then I would say between $3,000 to $5,000 is also a good number to move out with that is in your savings, because it still is enough to have this nice security blanket. So we've added up our income, we've subtracted our expenses, and now we have this number here that is what we can afford in rent. Now, you don't want every last penny of this number here to go to rent. You want to also be able to save. So make sure that whatever this number here is, minus your expenses, that out of that number you can save at least a few $100s out of that a month. That's completely separate from what you'll be paying in rent, because your bills aren't going to go anywhere. Your bills honestly triple once you move into an apartment. You got to think about furniture, you got to think about things coming up. And once you decide all of that, right, you guys now need to decide from that number, because that number is going to give you it all. It's going to say, well, what can I afford? Can I afford my own place? And I live in New York, and the cost of living and what New York actually pays you is like, cost of living's all the way up here, and what New York pays you is down here. So usually people in New York, we hustle and we have more than one stream of income, which I think is important for everyone to have more than one stream of income. You don't want to just rely on one thing, but you know, everything takes time for people to get. But, and sorry guys if I'm talking in a circle, but everything that you guys are going to hear in this video is going to be super, super important and impactful for you moving out. So you decide, should I get roommates? Should I live on my own? Should I buy a house? Should I buy a condo? What? So once you decide what it is that you can afford, now you need to start looking. So for me, myself, I have roommates. I knew that at this moment right now, I cannot afford my own place. And you have to be honest with yourself. So I found roommates. Not everyone's story is gonna be as easy or the easiest, but everything is not so hard. And I will have a video for you guys coming about what it's like living with the roommates, so stay tuned for that. But once you decide, like, okay, I'm gonna either shop for my own place, or I'm gonna have roommates, or I'm gonna rent out someone's basement or whatever, you need to start looking. So some of the best places to look, if you're looking for like roommates and stuff, Craigslist is amazing. Zillow, apartments.com is good if you're looking for apartments. The newspaper is actually really good too. The newspaper can definitely help you find rent, talking to friends and family members. And then also, you need to get your hustle on and get up and get out of the house and start going around to these buildings, speaking with the leasing office, and find out how much rent is, so you can shop around in your area and see like, what are these prices even looking like? You also need to decide if you're even going to stay in whatever area your family is at. Like well, not all my family, but majority of my family lives in New York. So am I staying in New York? Am I going to move down south where it's cheaper? Like, you need to think about all of those things, and then also think about, you know, if you do decide to move down south, yes, the cost of living is cheaper, but also how much you make goes down as well. So be mindful of all of that when making your decision to move out. So what do we have so far? We have how much we make. We have our expenses. We have this amount of money here that we can spend, which would be rent and savings. And then we have our decision on if we're gonna have roommates, if we're gonna move on our own, if we're gonna rent out a basement, if we're gonna get a condo, if we're whatever. So then once you do that, and I would say as a millennial, it's hard enough already for us. Like, things are not as easy as it was when our parents were growing up. Like, my mom moved out when she was like 17, and that just wasn't something that was realistic in our time, our day and age, unless you're like a Kylie Jenner or, you know, a Kardashian, and you come from money and wealth within your family, and you can afford to do that and buy a $1 million home. But not all of us come from that, so we need to be smart and think about, you know, what it is that we're gonna do and how we're gonna get it done. So if your savings is not at the 2,000 to 3,000 number, I would say that now what you need to do for the next few months is save. And that's easier said than done, but it's something that has to be done. And then another thing, while you are shopping around for your apartment, whatever number that you just said that you can pay for rent, I want you to now save that number every single month. Save it every single month. Why? Because that's the only way that you can decipher if you can actually afford this or not. If you're saving it and you're like, oh, cool, that's good. But if you're trying to save it and you're over here struggling, then no, you can't. You can't afford that. And one thing that you don't want to do is struggle while you're moving out. I mean, through struggle comes growth for some people, but not everyone survives their struggle. So you want to move out in the best possible predicament that you can. So definitely saving that number that you say you can afford for rent is crucial to do for the next month or 2 months before you actually make the move and move out. Another thing that you want to do if you are going to decide to move in with roommates is you want to make sure that the people that you'll be moving in with are, you know, like let's see, I moved in with roommates and I had a full list of questions. Do you smoke? Do you do drugs? Do you do this? Do you do that? Blah, 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 blah. These are all questions that you need to write down because you need to decipher if you can live with these people or not. Because that will tell you if you need to keep looking or if perfect, I have found what seems to be a happy home. And I'll get into more of that when I do the how living with roommates video is. But now that we're saving our rent money, what you need to do is not look at furniture. If you can't afford a bunch of furniture, I wouldn't waste your money and get into debt buying a whole bunch of stuff. It's honestly not that important. As long as you have something to sleep on and you have a home until, you know, I would say buy little pieces at once. Like if you have to sleep on a blow-up bed for a month or 2 months until you can afford an actual bed of your choice, then that's what you have to do. Like you have to realize that you're starting from the ground up, and furniture and stuff like that is not cheap at all, because not only are you paying for the furniture, but you're paying for the people to move it, you're paying the hours and labor for the people to build it up for you if you're doing that, or if you're gonna do it yourself. It's a lot that goes into it. So you definitely want to make sure that you can afford all of those things. So make sure that looking for furniture is probably at the bottom of your list, unless your income, you know, is just amazing and you can afford to furnish your whole place as well as afford your rent and all that, and you don't have to worry about expenses. But I'm pretty sure if your income was like that, you wouldn't be watching this video right now. So another thing that's important too, guys, is why you want to make sure that you have enough, because when you move in, you're gonna have to pay first month's rent, security. It depends how you do it. Sometimes you might go through a broker and then you have to pay broker fees. Some places might ask you for first and last plus security, it all depends. Every place is different. For me, I had to pay first month's rent and security deposit. So that was what I had to do. So yeah. Another thing that you want to be mindful of, and this all goes back to expenses, is that are utilities included? Because it's great that you can afford the rent, but can you afford the utilities? Can you afford to keep the lights on? Can you afford to add cable? Can you afford to pay for internet and Wi-Fi? Can you afford the gas, the AC, what can you afford all those things? Because people don't realize when moving out, the rent is your biggest expense, right? But there's so many other expenses that come with it. You have water, you have gas, you have electric, right? And then after those three things, like where I live in a luxury apartment with my roommates, so we have amenities, and those amenities come with fees, and we have to pay amenities fees, so that's added on top of it. And then it's like, okay, well, you paid for the electric, you paid for the gas, you paid for the water, and now it's like, well, what about cable? And what about internet? Because you can't just survive off having your phone work and all of that. Like, you need some Wi-Fi. Not saying you need it. There's stuff you can go without. But it's, let's just say, a luxury that a lot of people would want to have. You don't want to be struggling people. So make sure that you can afford all of those things. And then another thing that helps with when you write it down is you can sit there, and when you have stuff pen to paper, I just think it's better for your mental to be able to decipher the numbers. And you're like, okay, well, I don't really watch Netflix, so I can actually get rid of that, and now I have an extra blah 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 going into savings. Or I don't really need unlimited texting and talking on my phone because don't nobody call me anyways, so I could get rid of the unlimited plan and go with this plan, and that saves me an extra $30 a month. So now I'm adding money into savings. Like, this is actual stuff that I did, and stuff that you should definitely do too. You can cut down your bills before you move out. I actually cut down bills while I was moved out because I was like, you know what, I tripled my bills and I'm spending way too much right now, so I need to like cut these bills down. And that's something that I did. And then something that I think is great advice, because I feel like a lot of people are so afraid of this. Yeah, I told you all this. Yeah, I told you guys you need the numbers, you need this, you need to figure out your savings and blah blah blah. But besides that, when you move out and you know you have this number that you need to have every month without a doubt, you're gonna make it happen. So don't be afraid of that, because you're not gonna sit there and go throughout the month lollygagging like, let's go out to eat, let's go for drinks, let's do this, and then not have that paid. Because this is where you now live. This is your home. So that is something that you're just gonna make sure that you get it done. And a friend told me that, and now I'm telling you guys that, and that really helped me, because when I tell you guys, I was ready to pull my hair out, and I was just so like afraid. Like, I was just like, I can't afford none. I'm never gonna move out. It's just not gonna happen. I don't know. No, it can happen. You can definitely move out, but if there's a number that you have to hit, you are going to make sure that you get it done. So don't overthink it. There's nothing wrong with overthinking, but sometimes overthinking gets to us too much, and then we end up not executing the things that we want to get done. I think there might be a part 2 to this video, guys, because there is, you know, a lot more to moving out, and I think there's a lot of things that I do want to mention in the what it's like living with roommates video. But for now, that is my advice for you guys for moving out and how to get out of your parents' home. And I hope you guys like this video. Give this video a big thumbs up. I love you guys. Thank you all for supporting my channel, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button before you leave. Subscribe, guys. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for tuning in. Bye. Oh, also guys, if you have any more questions for me, feel free to comment those questions below, and I will make sure to respond to each and every one of you guys. So later, see you in the comments.